The Galactic Council chamber was older than most recorded civilizations, a cathedral of stone and alloy layered with centuries of dominance. Tiered platforms spiraled upward, each level reserved for species according to influence, military strength, and historical victories. The highest tiers glowed with ceremonial light. The lowest remained in shadow. Humanity sat there. 5 representatives. No banners. No weapons. Plain uniforms, neutral colors. Observers, as the galaxy preferred them. High Executor Zirachthael rose from the Velker tier, his armored form unfolding to its full height. The chamber quieted at once. Even the elder races leaned back, accustomed to violence when the Velker spoke. "Let the record reflect," Zirachthael announced, his voice amplified and ritual precise, "that the Velker Dominion formally declares war upon the Terran species and all assets under their control." A ripple of sound followed, clicks, murmurs, faint amusement. He continued, projecting star charts into the air. "Human expansion exceeds acceptable parameters. Their adaptability violates compact equilibrium. Their population growth threatens long-term stability. Termination is necessary." One of the counselors shifted. Another yawned. The human delegation did not move. Zirachthael's mandibles flexed. "You may respond." Ambassador Lin Wei folded her hands on the table. She did not stand. "For procedural clarity," she said evenly, "you are invoking Article 17. Total war. No arbitration. Correct. No embargo period. Correct. No civilian immunity." A pause. "Correct." Lin nodded once. "Timeline?" "Immediate." She tapped her console, sending the confirmation to Earth. "The declaration is received. Humanity acknowledges." That was all. A few counselors blinked. One laughed softly, assuming it was nervousness. Zirachthael waited, expecting outrage, defiance, fear. None came. "You have no protest?" he asked. Lin met his gaze. "We've learned protests are rarely heard." The chamber moved on. Ancient wars resumed discussion. Trade disputes reclaimed attention. Humanity's seat returned to irrelevance. Only Zirachthael watched them leave, unsettled by the absence of panic. On Earth, the message arrived at 3:17 Coordinated Terran Time. Admiral Elias Rowan was already awake. The United Terran Systems headquarters lay beneath the Alps, a lattice of reinforced halls and living light. No alarms sounded. No sirens cut the night. A soft chime marked the arrival of the transmission. Rowan read it once. Then again. War. Full declaration. No arbitration. He exhaled slowly and stood. "Flag command," he said, voice calm. "Initiate Alpha Black." The officer across the room did not hesitate. "Confirmed." "All theaters?" "All theaters." A sequence of acknowledgments flowed in, quiet and orderly. Fleets rerouted. Colonies shifted power grids. Logistics networks changed priorities without public announcement. It had been rehearsed, refined, simulated for decades. Rowan walked to the observation window. Earth turned below, clouds drifting peacefully over continents that had never known alien fire. "Not yet." His aide hesitated beside him. "Sir, should we notify the public?" Rowan considered it. "In phases. No panic alerts. No dramatics. They declared total war." "Yes," he said, almost amused. "They always do." The aide studied him. "You sound relieved." Rowan's mouth curved faintly. "Do you know how long we've been told to stay small? To stay quiet? To accept limits designed by people who feared what we might become?" He tapped the glass. "They just gave us permission to stop pretending." Across Earth, systems shifted with subtlety. Markets adjusted, then stabilized. Transportation grids rerouted. Emergency reserves unlocked quietly. On Luna, orbital docks sealed and armed themselves without spectacle. On distant colonies, protocols older than the settlers themselves activated like muscle memory. People noticed something was wrong, but nothing felt wrong. No screaming headlines. No collapsing cities. Just a sense of expectation. In deep space, the Velker fleet translated into Sol. It was beautiful in a brutal way. Thousands of ships, layered formations, weapon arrays glowing with ritual markings. Zirachthael watched from the command throne, confident. "Broadcast surrender terms," he ordered. The signal went out in every known human language. Earth replied minutes later. "Transmission received," the automated voice said. "Time-stamped. Logged. Nothing more." Zirachthael clicked sharply. "Fire!" The first volley tore into the outer defense perimeter, then vanished. Human shields flared, adjusted, and absorbed energy no Velker simulation had accounted for. "What?" a commander hissed. "Second volley," Zirachthael snapped. This time, counterfire answered. Not overwhelming. Precise. Velker's ships lost propulsion, weapons going dark without catastrophic damage. Disablement. Not destruction. "They're holding back," a tactician said. Zirachthael felt something tighten in his core. Why? Back on Earth, Rowan watched the live feed, hands clasped behind his back. "Phase 1 complete," an officer reported. "Losses?" "Minimal." "Velker casualties?" "Contained." Rowan nodded. "Good. They need to learn the difference between mercy and weakness." He turned as another message arrived, Galactic Council Priority Channel. "They're asking what we intend," his aide said. Rowan smiled, just slightly. "Tell them," he said, "that humanity is responding exactly as expected." Outside, Earth kept turning. Inside, the war humanity had prepared for all its life had finally begun. And for the first time in a century, the galaxy had their full attention. The Velker fleet regrouped beyond the outer orbit, engines burning in disciplined arcs. Damage reports scrolled across Zirachthael's command display, disabled cruisers, severed weapon spines, propulsion failures without hull breach. The numbers made no sense. His doctrine demanded decisive annihilation, not this precise humiliation. "Analyze their response," he ordered. A junior tactician's frill twitched. "Their shields reconfigured between volleys. They adapted faster than our cycle models." "Impossible," Zirachthael said. "No species reacts that quickly without autonomous war minds." "They used them," another officer replied carefully. "But constrained. Ethical limiters, perhaps." Zirachthael stared at Sol, at the blue planet that should have been begging by now. "Arrogance," he decided. "They fear retaliation." He was wrong. On Earth, Admiral Rowan watched the same data with a different expression, measured intent. The room was quiet, not tense. Officers spoke and clipped updates, their voices steady. "Velker formations tightening," a sensor chief reported. "They're preparing a saturation strike." Rowan nodded. "They'll escalate." "Let them." A colonel frowned. "Sir, we could end this quickly." Rowan's eyes stayed on the display. "Quick endings create resentments. We need understanding." The colonel hesitated, then nodded. The doctrine was clear, even if it felt counterintuitive. In orbit, Velker weapons ignited again. This time the attack was layered: energy lances, kinetic swarms, antimatter spears. The void glowed. Human defenses did not flare immediately. Then space bent. Grids unfolded from nothing, interlocking fields that redirected force rather than resisting it. Kinetics curved away. Energy bled into reservoirs. Antimatter dispersed into harmless radiation. Velker's ships began to lose formation integrity. "Target their command vessels," Zirachthael commanded. Human counterfire answered, not at command ships, but at support craft. Fuel tenders went dark. Communications relays flickered. Repair barges drifted powerless. "They're cutting our legs," a Velker captain snarled. "Focus fire," Zirachthael barked. "Break their shields." But the shields were no longer where they had been. Human systems moved like thought. Patterns shifted, nodes sacrificed and replaced. The Velka fleet burned resources chasing a defense that refused to stay still. On Earth, Rowan leaned closer to the console. Initiate Phase 2. Limited projection. Acknowledged. From civilian traffic lanes, unremarkable cargo vessels changed course. Panels peeled back. Drone swarms spilled into space, elegant and silent. They did not charge. They surrounded. Velka targeting systems lagged, overwhelmed by thousands of small signatures behaving with unsettling coordination. They're using logistics hulls, a Velka officer whispered. As carriers. Zirakthal's mandibles tightened. They hid war inside commerce. They hid survival, Rowan said quietly, watching the feeds. There's a difference. The drones struck with restraint, precision pulses that fused weapon mounts, sliced sensor arrays, severed engines without detonations. Ships fell inert, drifting among stars they no longer controlled. A Velka channel cut through the noise. Human command. Cease fire. This outcome was not anticipated. Rowan let the silence stretch. Outcome? You are exceeding projections. That tends to happen when projections are lazy. A pause. What do you want? To be understood, Rowan replied. Stand down. Withdraw beyond the heliopause. We will not retreat, Zirakthal interjected, forcing the channel open. His image filled the display, eyes burning. You mistake our patience for fear. Rowan met his gaze. No. I mistake your fear for patience. The channel closed. The Velka fleet surged again, desperation bleeding into formation. Human systems responded with increased firmness, still controlled. More ships disabled. No kills. In the Galactic Council chamber, observers watched the data streams in disbelief. Models collapsed. Assumptions failed. They're not fighting like conquerors, a counselor murmured. They're teaching, another replied. Back in Seoul, Zirakthal watched his armada lose coherence. Supply alarms cascaded. Ammunition reserves dwindled faster than predicted. Every solution created a new vulnerability. How? He demanded. A senior strategist answered softly. They prepared for this. Long before today. On Earth, Rowan straightened. Begin withdrawal containment. Give them a corridor. You're letting them leave? Yes. Sir? War is communication, Rowan said. They've heard the first sentence. The Velka fleet limped away, battered and bewildered. Zirakthal watched Seoul recede, a cold realization settling into him. This had not been a battle. It had been a demonstration. Rowan turned from the display as new messages arrived, Galactic Council inquiries, diplomatic probes, hurried recalibrations of tone. He ignored them. Prepare the briefing, he said to his staff. The galaxy is about to ask what we were doing while they were watching. Outside, Earth remained serene. Inside, humanity adjusted its grip on a war it had no intention of losing, slowly, deliberately, and on its own terms. The first thing the galaxy noticed was not another explosion. It was silence. Velka's systems went dark across 3 sectors, not from destruction but from absence. Fuel convoys failed to arrive. Repair docks powered down mid-cycle. Communications relays transmitted perfect signals, empty of meaning. Fleets waited for orders that never came. On Aurelian Prime, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber felt smaller now. Screens flickered with delayed data, projections rewriting themselves every few seconds. They've halted the Velka advance without pursuing, one counselor said. Why? They're isolating, another replied. Piece by piece. No one laughed this time. On Earth, Admiral Rowan stood before a layered display of star maps and logistics chains, his hands resting lightly on the rail. Around him sat commanders, economists, infrastructure leads, and civilian coordinators. No uniforms dominated the room. Authority here was shared. This is not escalation, Rowan said. It's clarification. A logistics director gestured at the display. We're hitting supply hubs outside their civilian lanes. Minimal collateral. Maintain that, Rowan replied. Every action explains who we are. A younger officer leaned forward. Sir, the Council is demanding disclosure. They want to know what we're deploying. Rowan allowed himself a thin smile. They've had a century to ask. He tapped the console. The room filled with layers of infrastructure, shipping routes, orbital platforms, data webs. None of it looked like a fleet. This, he said, is how we survived being small. He pointed to cargo networks. We built redundancy into everything. No single failure could end us. To energy grids. Adaptability. Systems that change under pressure. To communication meshes. Trust. Distributed decision-making. No tyrant nodes. The room was quiet, absorbing the simplicity. We didn't prepare to win wars, Rowan continued. We prepared to endure them until they lost meaning. In Velka space, meaning was unraveling. High Executive Zirachthael stood alone in the command sanctum, staring at cascading failures. Reports stacked faster than they could be addressed. Allies delayed responses. Subordinates hesitated before speaking. They are not attacking our worlds, a strategist said carefully. They are eroding our ability to move. Zirachthael turned slowly. We have endured sieges before. Yes, the strategist replied. But never without knowing where the enemy stood. Another officer spoke, voice strained. Human strikes are synchronized across light years. They predict our reroutes before we execute them. That implies foresight, Zirachthael said. Or patience, the officer answered. Zirachthael dismissed them with a sharp gesture. Alone again, he replayed the engagement logs. The humans had never rushed. Never committed fully. Every move suggested confidence not in strength, but in time. For the first time, he wondered how long they had been waiting. The counteroffensive unfolded like a lesson written across stars. Human task groups appeared briefly, struck precisely, then vanished. They disabled refineries, not cities. Jammed command traffic, not civilian channels. Velka admirals found themselves commanding fleets that could not refuel, could not resupply, could not coordinate. Desperation crept into their voices. On a secure channel, a Velka governor demanded retaliation against human colonies. Zirachthael refused. They want us angry, he said. We will not give them that. But anger had already found him. On Earth, Rowan addressed the council at last. His image filled the chamber, calm and unadorned. You ask what we were doing, he said. We were learning how not to die. A murmur rippled through the tears. You classified us as harmless because we did not posture. Rowan continued. You limited our weapons, so we refined our systems. You restricted our fleets, so we perfected logistics. You watched our borders, so we strengthened what lay beneath. A counselor leaned forward. Are you threatening the compact? No, Rowan replied. We are explaining it. Silence followed. We will not occupy Velka worlds. We will not annex territory. But this war ends when the Dominion understands that control is not stability. A pause. And if they do not? Rowan's gaze hardened. Then they will remain isolated until they do. The effect was immediate. Velka allies began withdrawing support. Trade routes rerouted. Diplomatic channels filled with careful language. No one wanted to be next to discover what else humanity had hidden in plain sight. Zirachthael felt the pressure closing in. His dominion was intact, but hollowing. A private channel opened, encrypted beyond standard protocol. High Executor, a voice said. This is Admiral Rowan. Zirachthael hesitated, then accepted. You fight strangely, he said without preamble. Rowan inclined his head. So do survivors. You could destroy us, Zirachthael accused. Yes. Then why don't you? Rowan's answer came without hesitation. Because destruction teaches nothing. The channel closed. Zirachthael stood in the dim light, surrounded by the echo of lost certainty. He had declared war expecting fear. What he found instead was a species that treated conflict as a long conversation, and had already decided how it would end. Far away, Earth turned beneath its skies, unaware of how carefully the galaxy now watched it. Humanity had removed its mask. Not to reveal a monster, but to show a system that could not be cornered, rushed, or erased. And for the first time since the Declaration, the war no longer felt inevitable. It felt instructional. The Velka Dominion did not fall in fire. It thinned. Supply corridors once bright with traffic became empty lines on tactical maps. War fleets sat idle, their crews waiting on orders that never arrived. Governors argued with admirals. Admirals argued with priests. Priests found their rituals unanswered by results. The Dominion still existed, but its momentum, its certainty, had bled away. High Executor Zirachthael felt it most sharply in the quiet. He stood before the star window of his command citadel, watching distant systems blink as Allied signals went dark. Withdrawals disguised as strategic pauses. Trade partners siding. Temporary instability. No one said the truth aloud. The Velka were being left alone. A priority channel chimed. Not a demand. Not a threat. A request. Zirachthael closed his eyes once, then opened the channel. Admiral Elias Rowan appeared, seated rather than standing, uniform simple, expression unreadable. No weapons visible. No banners behind him. "You asked for this conversation," Zirachthael said. "Yes," Rowan replied. "Because it's time to end the war." A sharp sound escaped the Velker's mandibles. "You speak as if it is yours to end." Rowan nodded. "It is." Silence stretched between them, heavy but controlled. "You have crippled our reach," Zirachthael said. "You have humiliated our fleets. Yet you refuse conquest. Explain." Rowan folded his hands. "We learned early that domination creates enemies who wait. Humanity has had enough of waiting enemies. You could erase us," Zirachthael pressed. "Your systems prove it." "Yes," Rowan agreed. "And you could have erased us once. That symmetry matters." Zirachthael stiffened. "We chose restraint." "No," Rowan said calmly. "You chose delay." The words landed harder than any strike. Rowan continued, voice even. "We do not seek your collapse. We seek your understanding. The galaxy was built on the assumption that strength must be loud to be real. Humans never survived by being loud." Zirachthael turned slightly, his reflection fractured against the stars. "You hid. We prepared," Rowan corrected. "While you measured fleets, we measured time. While you counted guns, we counted dependencies. While you wrote doctrines about victory, we wrote plans about endurance." A pause. "You declared war because you feared what we might become." Zirachthael did not deny it. Rowan leaned forward just enough to matter. "We became it anyway." On Aurelian Prime, the Galactic Council watched the same exchange through secure relay. No one interrupted. No one postured. They were no longer spectators to a familiar script. A senior counselor finally spoke. "What are your terms, Admiral?" Rowan did not look at them. His attention remained on Zirachthael. "Withdrawal from Sol-adjacent systems. Recognition of Terran sovereignty without classification limits. Dissolution of enforced development caps." "And Velker reparations?" the counselor asked carefully. Rowan shook his head. "None." The chamber stirred. Zirachthael snapped his gaze back to the screen. "You ask us to concede authority with no punishment?" "Yes." "Why?" Rowan's expression softened, just slightly. "Because punishment teaches compliance. We're interested in comprehension." The Velka leader was very still. "And if we refuse?" Rowan answered without hesitation. "Then nothing changes. Your fleets remain stranded. Your influence continues to shrink. Not by our hand, but by the galaxy's reaction to what it has learned." That, more than any threat, broke the last illusion. Zirachthael saw it clearly now. Humanity had not cornered the Velker. They had stepped back and let gravity do the work. "You waited for this," he said quietly. For someone to force your hand. Rowan did not deny it. We hoped it would never happen. Zirachthael studied the human, this quiet architect of an unwinnable war. If we accept, what does humanity become? Rowan allowed himself a small, genuine smile. What we always were. Just visible. The announcement followed hours later. The Velker Dominion formally withdrew its declaration of war. Borders were redrawn. Treaties rewritten. No victory parades followed. No occupation fleets moved in. Human forces powered down, returning to civilian configurations as smoothly as they had armed. Across the galaxy, analysts struggled to name what had happened. It was not conquest. It was not deterrence. It was something colder and far more unsettling. Reclassification documents circulated within the Council. Humanity could no longer fit existing categories. Not predator. Not prey. Not empire. A new designation appeared in the archives, carefully worded and rarely used. Strategic constant. On Earth, life continued. Cities woke under familiar skies. Children went to school. Ships lifted from spaceports carrying food, data, medicine. The war faded from headlines faster than anyone expected. In orbit, Admiral Rowan stood alone, looking down at the planet he had never doubted would endure. His aide approached quietly. Sir, the Council has accepted all terms. Rowan nodded. Good. And Velker space? They'll recover, Rowan said. They're not stupid. Just proud. The aide hesitated. Do you think they'll try again? Rowan considered the stars beyond Earth's curve. Not us. Not like this. He turned away from the window. The lesson was expensive enough. As he left the observation deck, Earth continued its steady rotation, unchanged by the attention of a galaxy that now watched it with something dangerously close to respect. Humanity did not celebrate. It simply returned to work. And somewhere, deep in alien archives, a single conclusion echoed across countless strategic simulations. The war with Earth had not been lost. It had been finished, before it could truly begin.